Right? Some people go through life thinking that how they see things is how they are. So when someone like me comes along and proposes a new idea that they simply don't like or that doesn't fit in with their frame of reference or their worldview, some people naturally reject new ideas or people or things because they just can't see how what other people say is real might be real. All right. Now, I don't want to go too philosophical on you. This is what makes this NLP communications model suddenly very, very relevant. So it's important to note here that all of our representational systems are absolutely crucial if we want to make sense of life in an accurate way. All right. Many people don't understand this because sadly it's not yet taught in school. Who knows? This might be something that you go on to do at some point in the future. So the reason why I share all this with you is because we experience life via our representational systems. Visually, auditorily, gustatorily, olfactorily, and kinesthetically, all right? Through sight, sound, taste, smell, and through getting a sense of things, through how we feel, all right? And if you think about it, right, we are always having this experience of life inside of ourselves. All right. When we start to kind of overstep boundaries, when we start to get confused, it's when we start to think or assume or believe that factors outside of ourselves are able to determine and influence what happens inside of ourselves. Now, people who are of little self-control will believe this. People who are not yet, too enlightened in their thinking will also subscribe to this notion. NLP can allow us to expand this notion and see how it is us and us alone that determines how it is that we experience life. But we can only take responsibility for experiencing life as we want to experience life once we understand how to manage ourselves and once we understand how our representational systems determine how it is that we perceive things. How we perceive things determines how it is that we ultimately experience things. All right? Now, if that seems a little bit complex, you might have to go back and watch through it once or twice. So, we experience life visually, auditorily, gustatorily, olfactorily, and through our kinesthetic sense, which is getting a feel, getting a grip for things. But this is us looking outwards to the outside world, all right? That is one part of our human experience. This is one way through which we communicate with the world at large. There's then what goes on inside of us, all right? Now, Sigmund Freud was one of the founding fathers of psychoanalytical psychology, all right? This is one of the main schools of psychological thought that many of the other schools of psychological thought have spawned from over the last 100 or so years. Inside of us, we have some values. Inside of us, we have an attitude towards people, towards ourselves, towards things. Values are just simply those things that we hold precious, those things that we hold dear, those things that our lives just wouldn't be worth living without. For example, a degree of security, connection, love, sharing, connectedness, progress, excitement, accomplishment, achievement. Our values are what kind of serve as the fuel for our goals, if you like. Our goals are the vehicle through which we accomplish and move forward and progress in life on a perception level, but it's our values that serve as the fuel. All right? Every single goal that we have in our lives, relationally, professionally, academically, in whatever context or area of our life, is every single goal will be underpinned by a value. So when we don't understand our values, we might end up committing to goals that are not congruent. They might end up committing to goals that we're not even passionate about fulfilling or pursuing. This is why some people end up in their 40s or their 50s or even their 60s. They've spent their whole life climbing this mountain only to reach the top and realize that they climbed the wrong one, that where they're at isn't where they actually wanted to be. So what I'm saying, at this stage of your life, you can stop right now and ask yourself the question, what is it that you actually want? What do you actually want to accomplish and achieve? Because NLP as a body of ideas gives us a basis for understanding this, all right? Which obviously is a teaching within itself. Have you ever struggled with self-doubt low self-esteem, perhaps you've had a little bit of anxiety in your past, you maybe even experienced a little bit of sadness, depression, those sorts of things. Now, answer me this. What relationship do you think your emotional experience and the language that you use towards yourself have? Do you think there might be any connection between the way in which you speak to yourself and the way in which you feel about yourself? Now, this can be an eye-opening factor for many, many people. I mean, think about it. If I was to go through life, all right, using my internal language, my internal dialogue, saying, Kane, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're useless, you're no good, you're not smart, you're not clever enough, you're not good enough, you're not this enough, how do you think that's going to affect my self-esteem? Of course, my self-esteem is going to plummet if I keep on speaking and relating to myself in this way. Why? Because how it is that we communicate with ourselves and other people through our use of language, either internally or externally, influences what it is that we go on to believe. Think about it, right? I'll ask you some complex questions because I want to get you thinking in a slightly more abstract way. See all the worldviews and the beliefs that you have about yourself. Are they all yours, i.e. well-informed decisions that you have arrived at by yourself, or are they ideas or worldviews or opinions that have been suggested to you or imposed upon you at some point throughout your life experience up until now? By your parents, by family members, by siblings, by your spouse, by your boss, by your management team, by your colleagues, by your business partners, by other people. What I'm saying here is many people go through life living ignorantly. I'm not saying this to undermine anyone. I'm just saying it's just how things are. All right, people go through life saying, I believe this, I believe that, I believe the next thing. And if you're saying, where does this belief come from? People kind of will look at you in this completely bewildered way. Because what many people claim to be firmly rooted beliefs aren't actually beliefs, not that are underpinned by any depth of conviction, but are actually just very, very loose notions that they've mindlessly adapted and embraced from other people along the way. All right. So the reason why I share all this with you is because it's essential. We appreciate that we were each brought into this world alone. We're going to leave it on our own. And unless we become grounded and structured in our own thinking and aware of the worldviews and the perspectives that we're operating out of, we may end up standing to compromise our relationships, undermine our careers, and sacrifice the progress we could otherwise make if we were just to simply become grounded in our own convictions and act upon them. All right. Now, it might seem like I'm communicating in a really kind of high level vocabulary right now, and this might be a little bit difficult to relate to. But it's important to understand the reason why many people don't accomplish or achieve anything in life. It's because they subscribe to really low level, small patterns of unhelpful thinking, small ideas, small beliefs that end up capping them and restricting them for anything up to an entire lifetime. So I'm here to challenge your thinking. I'm here to provoke you to think bigger, right? To understand yourself better and make wiser decisions about what you say yes to, what you say no to, and how it is that you go on to invest the rest of your life. All right. So NLP is all about awareness. All right, did I mention that? No, I didn't. I've just talked about values, attitude, and language up until now. But if these three factors do not lead us into heightened states of self-awareness, then we're no better off. And this is where over the years I've found that some, not all, but some NLP trainers especially, really fail people. Why? Because some people will communicate really complex ideas in a really complex way. I've attended NLP practitioner training courses. In fact, I've spent tens of thousands of pounds over the years, only to leave courses more bewildered about what NLP was than what I was before I went onto them, all right? So if we are not growing in self-awareness, then we're simply not growing, all right? So memories. It's important to understand that we all have memories and we're relating all things present and our expectations of the future to every memory that we have in the past. So let's just say, for example, I want to show you how everything I'm saying here is relevant, all right? I am doing my best to teach NLP, but all I can respond to are the memories that I have of the experiences I've had of other NLP trainers at some point in the past. Think about it. You know, if you were to go into an ice cream shop and there's 20 different flavors, all right? One of the flavors is pistachio, right? Now, I say pistachio because I love pistachio, and on a representational system, as I think about pistachio flavor ice cream, oh, my taste buds are going. There we go. I'm having an olfactory, gustatory experience here. But hang about, then I have a memory about the one time that I ate this pistachio ice cream cone, only to end up violently sick afterwards. Now that might become a future memory for you, picturing me being violently sick, having just eaten some pistachio nut ice cream. Now why do I say this? I say this because I have this memory and I think, oh, pistachio nut ice cream, I'm having a representational system experience, but then the memory pops in, but Kane, do you remember that time you ate pistachio nut ice cream which made you violently sick? Oh, now I do remember that. Suddenly, the drooling comes to an end, and I remember the sickness coming out. And yes, bartender, I'll have 2 scoops of strawberry. Thank you very much. All right, do you see how our memories influence our decision making? But if we're not aware of these things, if we're not aware of these factors, we might never be aware of the reasons why we make the decisions that we make. Are you starting to see that neuro-linguistic programming is actually quite an important field of study if we do want to live balanced and grounded lives? Then there's our priorities. Our priorities are simply those things that come first in our life. They're always going to be based upon our values, right? We're never going to prioritize something in our life that we have much of. Say, for example, you are single right now. Then in the top of your priority list, it might be the case that you really want to find Mr. or Mrs. Right or get into that relationship because it's a void in your life, right? The voids in our life will always be our top priorities, all right? The values in our life is what enables us to keep our the things that we go on to accomplish and achieve. The beliefs then that we have about ourselves, are we enough? Are we good enough? Are we worthy? Are we lovable? Are we likable? Are we smart enough? Are we clever enough? Are we fit enough? Are we good enough? Are we not good enough? Are we all these things? Determine whether we cross that starting line. Some people take NLP practitioner training courses especially, all right, because they see NLP as, okay, so NLP is going to enable me to accomplish all my goals and all that sort of thing. No, NLP is not going to help you to accomplish anything whatsoever because it's not a thing. It's a body of ideas that we can only relate to ourselves. And if we do not relate these principles and ideas to ourselves, we are not going to grow in awareness. Well, what is it that we need to become aware of? We need to, as human beings, become aware of the beliefs and the notions and the biases that we're operating out of, for it's them and them alone that determine the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis about the things that we say yes to, the things that we say no to, the people that we interact with, the judgments and the opinions and the assumptions that we make. All right? Sometimes completely unaware that our perception, how we see things, isn't always how things are. Which means that we sometimes end up, being our own worst enemies in life. We go through life with these blinkers on. I have some beliefs, I have some worldviews, I have some opinions, and I couldn't possibly be wrong because it's me, because I had an experience. No. Yes, you had an experience, and you just drew a meaning from that experience. A meaning out of potentially millions. Alrighty, so just a taster of what goes on inside of this mind of ours, all right? This is everything internal that happens as a response of, what it is that we experience externally. You with me? Alrighty, let's move aside. Are you following on? Is this making sense? I do hope so. I'm doing my best to break this down in my perfectly imperfect way. So then we have mental filtering, all right? And this is kind of, call it the enemy of the soul. This is the part of our our internal communications where everything falls apart, all right? Because we generalize, all right? Have you ever been put in a box? Have you ever been judged? Have you ever been assumed the worst of? There's a pretty good chance you're nodding your head, maybe getting a tear in your eye. Some people saying, yes, I've been on the receiving end of, I've been a victim, da 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 da. Then if I was to ask you the question, and how many times have you made assumptions? How many times have you judged? How many times have you put other people in the box? There's a good chance you might not be so aware because the way in which you see things is just how things are, right? And what's true for you is true for other people, all around the world on a global scale, all right? We go through life, we don't like to be judged, we don't like to be assumed the worst of, we don't like to have judgments made of us, but when we're being judged and having assumptions made of us, all that other people are doing is generalizing us in response to a memory that they've had of someone else similar to us at some point in the past. And what this does is it undermines us. And in the same way, this is what we will all do to other people if we are not growing in awareness. All right? So this is really important stuff, friends. Distortions. All right. Have you ever gotten things horribly wrong? Have you ever just taken huge offense at someone? Someone has said something to you and you just blown up or you've started crying and you're really bad, you're really nasty, only to then be presented with a bit more information. And then you have to backtrack and, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I got that wrong. If you even have the humility to backtrack and admit when you're wrong, which some people don't, right? This is distortions. It's a part of our human experience. It's part of our interpretational process, all right? When we're making sense of the world, we have all these experiences out here through our representational systems. Then we have this minefield going on in here, which is an absolute jungle, as I'm sure you can now appreciate. And then we now start interpreting our external experiences through generalizations, deletions, and distortions. Distortions is just simply when you have said this thing to me, I have this memory here when someone said something similar to me in the tone similar to the tone that you just used, and they were really bad, which means that you're really bad. So yeah, it's a generalization and it's a distortion. I've distorted the experience by jumping to an assumption or a conclusion about what you mean rather than taking any time to understand you. And then we conveniently delete things, all right? Because come on, if I was to ask you about the most memorable experiences that you've had, negative ones, there's a pretty good chance every single one of these negative experiences will have a relational component attached to it, i.e. someone said no to you. Someone didn't give you what you wanted. Someone dumped you. You got sacked. You lost your job. You didn't get picked. Something like this. All right? So what happens? Well, we experience those things in life as rejection of us, don't we? And then what? Right? We go through life on the defensive, doing our best to justify ourselves or over-enhance ourselves so we get picked next time around. So we're living life with blinkers on, looking at how it is that we can get ahead. And then when other people come to us trying to interact, what happens? Well, because we're so focused on what it is that we want to accomplish and achieve, we fail to realize that we might end up being and becoming the negative memories in other people's lives because we're just so focused on getting what we want. Other people end up being hurt in response to how it was that we were first hurt. So hurt people. It's one of these strange ironies of life. And the generalizations that we make when we kind of we put two and two together and come up with 365. Generalizations are kind of like saying all Scottish people are bad. All men are bad. Men, women, all feminists, all gays, all Muslims, all Christians, all politicians, they're all bad. None can be trusted. What, none of them? Not one? All men are bad? What, every man's bad? What, feminists? All feminists are bad? What, all blacks? All blacks are bad? All the time? All around the world? Really? And how many of those millions of blacks or millions of Christians or millions of Muslims do you personally know? Or are you just making an ignorance-based generalization? Because it's only when we start to grow a bit more aware of ourselves that we can start to produce more of the outputs, the outcomes, the results that we actually want in life.